Welcome into the Autzen Audibles podcast, Mailbag edition. I'm Matt Prehm, Erik Skopil on the show. As always, it's a great Monday to be here. Opening up the mailbag, like we said, a little light on questions, but the questions that we did get was pretty impressive. So, A, first of all, thank you for submitting. B, keep on the lookout. This is like your easiest way to interact with the show, be involved with the programming of the show. So be on the lookout next Monday. Hopefully we get a couple more. But hey, Erik, it's the last regular season home game of the 2025 football season this week. That feels extremely weird to say, but we've got a big one. USC comes to town. Gameday comes to town. CBS's national broadcast comes to town. This is like their fourth or fifth game Oregon's done on that channel at that time slot. This season, it feels like this is as big of a game in a long time, if you exclude the Ohio State game last season here at Autzen Stadium.
Yeah, fourth time, 12:30 CBS kick of the year. Curious fans, leave comments. Do you like the 12:30? I know it was a hot button issue on our board of there's only been one true night game. That was Friday. Everything else has been 12:30, 1 o'clock, 4:30, something like that. This continues that trend. Sixth time out of 11 games this year in the noon to 1 o'clock hour for a kickoff start. Kind of different. We're used to out here on the West Coast, a lot of 7:30s. I don't mind it personally, professionally. Get to go to bed a little bit earlier. Don't stay up till 4 in the morning like I did on Friday. But curious what the fans think. I know I've seen some pretty interesting discourse back and forth. And yeah, USC week. Let's start with a question that kind of centers not necessarily around the matchup, but about something that could be crucial within the matchup. This question comes from @DuckCruz. Has there been any whispers or intel about Evan Stewart returning for the USC game? This was certainly the target date during the summer. I'd heard pretty encouraging things even like in the last month. I am very wary of this happening for a couple reasons. And the first one is I've yet to see an instance where a player goes from out on the availability report to just playing. I've got all those. I didn't go through every single tweet this year, but off the top of my head, that's what I remember. And if some fan wants to go crazy, you can go look through my Twitter photos or media posts, and you can look at all the different availability reports of the year. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. Usually they go out, questionable, back. I haven't seen an out to just back. So that is something to be wary of. Like Kenyon Sadiq and Alex Harkey, who both made returns this last week. They were questionable both times. They were never out. Obviously, Evan's been listed as out the whole time. So that may be just semantics, but that stands out. And then I did hear from somebody recently, not like the greatest source of all time or anything, but somebody that has been helpful in the past who said they'd heard maybe not until postseason play for Evan. So I don't know, Matt, have you heard anything that contradicts that? I'm not really expecting it. Would be really big if it happened.
Yeah, I don't think Duck fans should anticipate Evan Stewart playing on Saturday against USC. This, like you said, this was kind of around the target date. A possible return could happen when the start of the season arrived, and we were at media day in early August. This felt like we heard this was kind of a potential area, and that's not to say that he's not on track, but maybe the framing of the question becomes, and my answer totally changes, is this where we see Evan Stewart maybe start working his way onto the practice field to do some form of football activity, whether it's with the team or with the OGs that would know? If you went to practice in the media world, you used to go watch, and there'd be the whole group participating, and then there'd be 3 or 4 to 8 to 10 guys way off in the distance, way off to the side, kind of doing some kind of conditioning, some kind of stretching, some kind of light workout on their own, and they weren't necessarily in pads. They were kind of rehabbing themselves, ramping themselves up to get on the practice field with the rest of the team. If that was the question, I would probably say, hey, yeah, there's probably a high probability Evan Stewart's in some capacity going to be on the field doing something off to the side, not with the group, clearly not ready to play, but he's entering the stage of ramping things up a little bit. regardless if he plays or not, I think expectations need to be extremely minimal.
For what it would be if he did.
Yeah, if he did come back and play, he hasn't played it down this season. He hasn't taken a snap in practice. He hasn't taken a rep in practice to date that we know of, at least.
There was some rumbling he'd been back at practice recently, but we can't confirm it because we don't get to go to practice.
Right. And he would be thrown into the fire with guys who are completely developed through the course of the year and all that comes with it, and getting better and getting acclimated and all that. And he would be fresh. Yes, he'd be healthy, knock on wood per se, but he wouldn't have the development and the growth that comes with playing a full season of football. And I think to sit here and say that he'd have a huge impact, I think just sets him up to fail. It's find one or two skill set things that he could do to make an impact in the game and be happy with that. But it certainly would be better to have him than not to have him. But I don't think Oregon fans should expect Evan Stewart this week and probably next week either to play.
And part of the reason this could be significant is there are some pretty solid players for USC who may also miss this game, including both starting safeties, Kamari Ramsey and Bishop Fitzgerald. That's at least the rumblings online. And much like Oregon, USC pretty tight-lipped with injuries. So this is all kind of going on behind the scenes without direct reporting from any of the coaches, at least on record. So that's going to be interesting. That could, by the way, mitigate some of the, oh man, Oregon doesn't have any of its receivers, but USC also doesn't have a couple of its key defensive backs, kind of a narrative. So that's something to be monitoring as the week goes on. And then we'll hit this question because it kind of dives. This is a continuation. It's a bonus question. We don't usually allow these, but as Matt said to begin the show, we kind of had a limited number of submissions this week. So we're giving Duck Cruz a double question here. The second one he got here was, what would your confidence level be for the playoffs if we get DeCorian Mora and Evan Stewart healthy and playing at the same time? # Autzen Audibles. It would be extremely exciting to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, and I guess I'd put it this way. We just are on the heels of a good weather day. Dante Moore just absolutely cooks a defense that has some talent, primarily at the line of scrimmage, but Coy Parrish is a safety who is really highly regarded, and Oregon just had its way with that Minnesota defense. 27 of 30, 306 yards, a couple touchdowns. And that was without three of the best receivers. In fact, probably the three starting receivers if everybody was healthy right now. If everyone's healthy, Evan Stewart's probably your Z. You got DeCorian at X, and you got Gary at slot. None of those guys played in that game. Just imagine what that offense could look like if everybody's healthy. And I think that's the kind of the carrot there. You're just kind of reaching out in front of you if you're an Oregon fan of, gosh, what would this look like? And I have heard there would be optimism for postseason play that both of DeCorian and Evan may be available, have a great chance to be available. And yeah, I mean, we haven't seen it, so it's really hard to know exactly how dynamic it would be, but we know what each of these look like as individuals, and we know how it changes this offense. I mean, what DeCorian was able to do his first 8 games as a freshman, some of the highs there, just some of the plays he's able to make, how nuanced he is. And then Evan Stewart, who one of the things I was really curious about this season was just how much more consistent he could be, because last year he had like all his production in 3 or 4 games. And we remember when it was really good against Ohio State, it was like upset a massive team, won a huge game good. And a lot of that on his shoulders because he's just beating guys that aren't used to getting beaten deep. We also saw where he was kind of quiet, but you have to think that those two would play off each other really, really well. And you'd have Kenyon Sadiq maneuvering the middle of the field. And this is what Will Stein was, I'm sure, all offseason thinking about and drawing up, and of course got a wrench thrown in the plans when Evan went down. So yeah, my confidence level would be rather high that Oregon can compete with everybody. And I guess the last thing I'll say is, having spent all of Saturday watching college football, which I'm sure Matt did as well, I don't know if I watched a lot of teams that really, really impressed me. And I looked at and thought that team would absolutely beat the crap out of a fully healthy Oregon team. Thought Georgia looked really impressive, especially late against Texas. The quarterback play in some of these SEC games to me was pretty mediocre, especially considering this is supposed to be like a 5-bid league right now. So I think if Oregon was at its full strength with especially these two guys, I think I'd put them up there just about anybody in the country. assuming that they're fully healthy and it's not just like they're out there running decoy routes, which would be something I would be concerned about early on.
Let's change the question a second here.
Okay.
And swap Gary Bryant Jr. for Evan Stewart, a much more realistic outcome. And I feel the same way you just spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a much better chance that we see DeCorian Moore play in the regular season, Gary Bryant play in the regular season than we do Evan Stewart play at some point the rest of the way, playoffs included.
Mm-hmm.
But if we just had Gary Bryant Jr. back, and if Oregon just had Corey and Moore back, they've now returned Alex Harkey. They've now returned Kenyon Sadiq. You look at this group up front. You look at the playmakers that they could add back in the next week or two, maybe 3. And yeah, Eric, I'm with you. Like, as long as they're not playing in a monsoon, their offense is
that's true too. Yep.
Their offense is going to be as electric, as potent, as explosive as anyone else in the country, if not the best. They still, I think they still lead the country. Excuse me. They still lead the country in explosive plays, or they're number 2 in the country in that regard. And that comes with 2 games in a row where they couldn't really throw the football because of the weather. The weather prevented it from happening. 72 plays of 20 or more yards. That's second best in the country.
Yep.
Run or pass. They've got the tools to do some damage in the playoffs. And Oregon's kind of also laying in the weeds where I think everyone's kind of forgotten. Indiana went into Autzen and straight up won that game outright.
Yep.
And they were the better team that day. And they then went and they struggled against Wisconsin a couple weeks later in a monsoon. Dante Moore got hurt in that game early in the second half. Iowa happened, and offense was just really difficult for either team, and they were playing in a monsoon. And ever since then, like, I understand Oregon's resume necessarily isn't the strongest out there, but it's still decent. It's still good. The ESPN's power index is really high on them. The strength of schedule indexes are still saying Oregon's got a really solid number here. Oregon's just kind of laying in the weeds. And if they can get everyone back for the playoff run, if they get to the playoffs, they went out because they've got to do that. They're going to be a formidable team that probably 99% of the teams in the league in the bracket outside of Indiana and probably Ohio State are going to say, we don't want anything to do with this team. We could beat them, but we don't want to face them. Like, they're dangerous. And I think that's kind of where Oregon wants to be right now. I don't know if they necessarily want to be the top dog going in with all the attention. Let people doubt them. That seems to be when Dan Lanning gets the most out of his programs, when people start doubting his program.
Yeah, kind of on that same thing, just about the narrative nationally and how it shifted. I think people who are saying that are ignoring like 3/4 of the component on in a football game, because a lot of the feedback and criticism was that Dante Moore in the pass offense wasn't playing well. Well, during that period of Wisconsin and Iowa, the offense had over 200-yard rushing both games. Absolutely dominated the line of scrimmage against Iowa very memorably. And defensively, they gave up 7 points one game, 16 points the other game. It was 9 points until, or 10 points, I should say, until the late Iowa drive. Like, the defense has been playing at a really high level. The offense from a run game perspective is better than it has been in Oregon, basically back since Chip Kelly. And because the weather was bad and the pass offense wasn't getting going, people were like, oh, this pass offense stinks. But you have to acknowledge the 2 games where the weather was good, Rutgers and now against Minnesota this past weekend. Go look at Dante Moore's stats. Put those up against any quarterback playing right now. They're absolutely up there in terms of just the production, the accuracy, the big play potential. So one of the good things about playoff football is once you get past that opening game, you're playing in bowl sites where the weather is usually not much of an impact because you're playing, in the South or in domes. Oregon would be a real dangerous team there, especially if these guys get back. And just kind of furthering my point about just the totality of this team, there's 4 teams in the country right now that have top 10 offenses and top 10 defenses. 2 of them are the number 1 and 2 teams in the country, Ohio State, Indiana. The other 2, Texas Tech and Oregon. So this is one of the more complete teams in the country without question right now. And I agree, Matt, there's kind of been a shifting narrative, and we'll see this weekend. This is going to be a huge test in terms of kind of where they really stand. We'll see what the weather looks like to this point. Do they get a good weather day consecutive weeks? That'd be nice to kind of flex a little bit. But I'm with you. This is a really dangerous team. And that was sort of my outlook going into the season, was they might take some lumps early, a lot of young players playing different roles than they're used to. But by the end, by the time you get to November, December, January, this is going to be one of the tougher teams to play. And it looks like it's trending in that direction. I think Saturday is going to tell us a lot more about if that's the case or not. All right. Jumping over to this one from @Robbie Parness, another frequent question asker. Which group is it more important to get a great game from on Saturday, the DBs or the edge/linebackers? Hashtag Autzen Audibles. Kind of both, right, Matt? Like, kind of these two work in tandem.
You need both to play, but I'll let you finish your response before I give mine, unless you want me to. But I think there is a clear one that you need to have better than the other one.
Tell me who the clear one is, and I'll tell you if I agree.
Okay, so you do need both to play well. Yes, 100%. That's not doubting it. But your edge guys, your pass rushers, your outside linebackers, if they can get to the quarterback, if they can get to Mavia and they can speed him up and they can build that internal clock to go faster, they can hit him as he's throwing or just before he's throwing where he short arm stuff. That makes it an easier job for your cornerbacks and your safeties. That makes it easier. And if you have an elite pass rush, that can kind of mask some deficiencies or some mistakes that you may have in your secondary. I'm not saying Oregon has deficiencies in their secondary, because they're one of the best secondaries in the country. If not, I think their pass defense is the best in the country. So
statistically, it is right now. Statistically, yes. It has been.
So, I'm not sitting here going to say that Oregon has major deficiencies there. They don't. But they're also human. They also will make mistakes in this game. But if you have an elite pass rush, that can mask and cover up and make up for errors, human error, execution error, scheme error, or lack of talent in that kind of a matchup. So I would argue, like, if they're both equally important. They're both important. You have to have good levels at both spots in a game like this to win. But if you needed to pick one over the other, I would go the pass rush, because it's a lot easier to cover a guy for 2.5 seconds than it is to cover a guy for 4.5 seconds, no matter how good you are.
Kind of an interesting stat here from PFF. I've got it pulled up here. And I'm looking at this because I think they're susceptible to what you're talking about, USC. I mean, they're 95th on PFF in pass blocking grade right now. Their grades are very solid in all but 3 games. The 3 games it's not good: Illinois, where it's a red number; Notre Dame, where it's a red number; Iowa, where it's a red number. And red numbers indicate very, very poor performance. These are grades in the 30s and 40s. Otherwise, this is a light to dark green pass blocking unit operation. Sort of it tells you something there of when you do get to the quarterback. USC has lost to Illinois. They lost to Notre Dame. Iowa came very, very close to pulling the upset there. A toe with that, if you watch the game, there may be a toe from being inbounds, from connecting for a play that could have led to the go-ahead score and changed the result there. And on the same token here, Jade Mayava, for as good as he has been, and this kind of leads right into what Matt was saying a moment ago, for as good as he has been, when he's under pressure, he's not been a very good quarterback. That's not exactly a unique concept. Very few quarterbacks are awesome under pressure. But he's thrown 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on passes where he's under pressure, according to PFF, with a completion percentage of 40.5. And when the pocket's been kept clean, that's 18 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, completion percentage of 75.9. So if you're able to get to this guy, if you're able to make things difficult, he doesn't perform very well. Again, not exactly a unique concept, but I think it stands out even more with Jaden than other guys. So I agree that that's the answer. That's where I would go. I also think this is going to be the biggest test so far for Oregon's corners. Brandon Finney's looked great all year. We know this. The other corner spot makes me a little nervous. Ify Obadegu started the year there. Theron Johnson has replaced him as a starter the last 5 games. I don't think either has looked very good. Memorably against Minnesota, that touchdown comes with Obadegu either playing the wrong leverage or just a step slow, but he's trailing the play by several yards. I mean, the pass that goes for a touchdown is a full, force your whole body to turn back and basically collect the ball with the hand trailing the play. It's a bad pass. And if the secondary player is just even close, it's an incompletion. And yet he's able to catch it and he knows, what happens next. He goes in for the touchdown. That part does concern me. A Scotch, I know what the stats say. This is the best secondary in the country in terms of opposing passing yards, opposing quarterback rating. Nobody's been better. Brandon Finney Island has been a place no receivers really want to dwell this year. It's not been a very fun place to be. I will say USC has Makai Lemon, who has a case to be among the best receivers in the country. I actually haven't looked. I'm going to pull this up right now as we go, where his PFF grade ranks. I know statistically he's one of the very, very best in the country. Jacoby Lane, a one-time Oregon commit, also an absolute stud. So USC has elite receiver talent, probably the best combination, just the top 2 that they've played. I put, off the top of my head, I put Indiana and Rutgers is probably the next best. And I just pulled this up. Makai Lemon has the number 1 receiving grade in the country for receivers, and it's by over 2 points on PFF. Again, PFF doesn't have to be gospel, but it's an indication these guys playing at as good of a level of anybody in the country. So that's going to be a fascinating matchup. Brandon Finney against Lemon potentially could be like wide receiver 1, corner run caliber of a matchup. These are 2 former 5-star recruits, big time prospects. That's going to be interesting. But I'm circling back to the actual answer. I just wanted to give it a full explanation on the DB part. I agree. I think if you don't even have to worry quite as much about Makai Lemon and Jacoby if you're able to get to Jade Mayava. And Oregon's pass rushers, this is an opportunity to get home quite a bit. And they haven't really been able to do it this year, right? Like, you think about Oregon in the last couple of years.
I think that's by design, though, of their opponent. Like,
I agree. But they've only had 18 sacks in 10 games this year. And I'm also frustrated, Matt, because they didn't give Mateo that sack last game, and that was absolutely a Mateo Uiagalelei sack. I don't know why we're pretending that didn't even get registered as a sack. It was just a 7-yard loss.
Yeah,
it was a drop back, and the guy fell down
because he knew he was going to get absolutely just depleted by Mateo.
Yeah, I don't understand what we're doing on the stat sheets, but anyway, so yeah, no, I agree. That's the case for me, and it's also probably like who's it more important for is just because I think the DBs have really outplayed the edges pound for pound this season, at least in conference play. And this is a game where you need those guys to play well. Okay, last one here. And as the question says, this is the most important question from @PCool, right? Most important question of the week. Who should be the guest picker on Saturday? College game day is in town. Oregon's had some great guests on the show previously. I know Matt's going to put together a little written content kind of with some options later this week, but I'll just say this and I'll toss it to Matt. We did pick up on something interesting. All 3 of Oregon's 4 starting NFL quarterbacks currently are idle in the NFL this week. Could be one of those guys, maybe?
Yeah, Bo Nix, Marcus Mariota, and Justin Herbert are all on buys this week. Setting up, first of all, Dan, Will, if you guys have any kind of quarterback prospects that you're wanting to recruit and bring onto campus, this feels like an important weekend where you could potentially get them on campus and then try and work with these 3 guys to come home. And that would be a easy recruiting style. Hey, 3 NFL starting quarterbacks are here right now. They all played at our school. You should come here. To answer the question, those feel like the 3 obvious ones. We should note And this was pointed out to me over the weekend that this weekend, Oregon is also inducting its 2025 Hall of Fame class at Oregon. And one of the inductees is Marcus Mariota. So he will be on campus. He will be in town. His teammate, Hronis Grasu, will also be inducted into the Hall of Fame. So maybe you could do a tandem there. All three Oregon quarterbacks at once would be sweet. That wouldn't happen. They don't do that. I also sent you an off the wall idea here.
I like this. I hope I'll be open. Yeah.
It's very evident Eugene is his favorite place to come. The Oregon Duck mascot is his favorite, and he did his goodbye at the beginning of the year. But it kind of seems fitting if Lee Corso all of a sudden showed up just for a guest picker mentality, knowing the setting, knowing the team that's hosting. That would be something that would be pretty cool. I don't think it will happen. I don't anticipate it would happen. But that's just maybe another name. I will, as much as I've enjoyed Sabrina Ionescu being on the show, and this is like a case of like, it's not her, it's us. She's done it like 3 out of the last like 4 times at Oregon, or 2 out of the last 3 or something like that.
2 of the last 3. Yeah, I get it.
It could be 3 of the last 4 if she's on the show again. That feels very like, hey, you've gone this route before, you've done it. She's great. We love her, but you need to find somebody else.
Yeah, there's some Sabrina fatigue. And I know that because I don't know if you saw this, Matt, but yesterday at the Oregon women's game at halftime, she was doing.
I did see this. This is absolutely wild.
it was actually very strange. So they did Sabrina made an appearance at halftime in disguise for Eli Manning's Undercovers show on Amazon Prime, which is like professional athletes go in disguise. They do something athletic and surprise fans. And it was a halftime free throw shooting competition. And she was dressed with a black wig with glasses, with full prosthetic face, just like did not look like herself. Very baggy clothes. And I think she was announced as Jennifer Scone or Jennifer Schoon or something. And she goes up and they do the one warm-up free throw, and it looks terrible. And you're like, oh gosh, this is going to be a mess. And then she makes 9 in a row. She totally sandbagged it. And yeah, so she was introduced. So she's in town doing things for that. And I know the reason I bring this up is I had 2 or 3 people mention to me, gosh, she's going to be guest picker again, isn't she? I don't think so. I think that would be weird twice in 1 year, by the way. I would imagine that's never happened on game day. It's very unusual that they go to the same location twice, much less the same host again. But yeah, I think there's some Sabrina fatigue, even though most people listening really value her contributions to the university and everything that she's meant. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I'm when Matt told me just before we jumped on that Marcus was being inducted into the Oregon Hall of Fame on Friday, that screams Marcus Mariota is going to be the guest picker to me.
The holdup becomes, can you convince him
to go on screen and do that?
Yeah, like he's just like Herbert. He doesn't like the attention on himself. He's always a deflector of, I want the attention to go to my team or my teammates.
By the way, Matt, none of these quarterbacks, they're all that way. Bo's the same way.
Yeah. And I just think, can you convince him to be outgoing enough and to embrace the star mentality on you, the spotlight on you, for millions of people to watch to pick these games? I think he would do it. I bet you he would probably do it. If this was Marcus Mariota in 2026 or in 2016, I bet you he would not do it. But he's been on a decade removed. Think about that. A decade removed from Oregon football. And
more than that,
things have changed. So maybe he does it. I hope he does it. That would be really cool. There's no real basketball guy in the NBA that's out there that can pull this off. I checked the schedules there. But I do wonder, her star has gotten pretty bright too in the WNBA. What about Satu Sabali? She's she's a big name. She's an all-star. She's one of the
Yep.
best players in the WNBA.
She is.
She's also a very big Oregon legend, and I think she's got enough of the national cachet that the average fan would at least recognize who she is to pull the trigger, to have her be one of the guest pickers. And that's the trick, right? Like, you easily could do Hronis Grasu. Oregon fans would love it. Oregon fans would know who he is and would be all about it, but no one else would, and can't be that way. Ironically enough, like, another name, he's in town, DeAnthony Thomas, he would pull off, and doing it against USC of all places too would be a really funny troll job.
Yeah, DeAnthony against USC would be some sort of LA connection. There would be notable. I still like Marcus. Satu would be. I mean, she just played the WNBA finals. She's, like you said, she's one of the 10 or so best players in the WNBA. I get that. I don't know how. And this is somebody who covers women's basketball and has probably a greater appreciation than just about anybody listening for women's athletics. Or I shouldn't say that, but I value it. Is my point. I don't know how the fan base would react to every single time we have game day in town. It's a women's basketball player on the stage. Like, there's so many. I mean, this is look at you watch an NFL, Sunday on Red Zone, and you see like dozens of Oregon players making contributions, and so many of them are on bye this week. It just feels like it makes a lot of sense for one of those three quarterbacks. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's a name to know in future years when there's not the schedule is aligning like that. Because the one thing that kind of leads to WNBA players being available, especially at a school like Oregon where you have some really good ones, is their seasons don't overlap and they're not playing when game day is in town. Whereas NFL, obviously, it's once in a blue moon where you actually have the stars align. You have a bye week, or maybe the team plays on a Thursday or something, and they're able to come check it out. So I'm thinking it's Marcus. Yeah,
it's got to be Marcus. It's the above and beyond obvious one. Beyond that, it becomes interesting. But yeah, it's got to be Marcus. But yeah.
I guess if there's anybody we're missing, fans, throw it in the comments section. If there's like I know people were the first time were throwing out Chad Powers because of that show dropping on Hulu, which to me was one of the worst things I've watched in a minute. I didn't even finish it. But if there's any like other things we're missing here that makes sense, throw those in the comments. I'd be curious to see where everyone's head's at.
What if I can't believe like Dana Altman or Kelly Graves haven't done it maybe earlier in the timeline when they were like Final Four bound,
right?
Kind of around then, or just fresh off the Final Four. I've always kind of been surprised they've never really done it, and it's probably unfortunate that neither team is ranked inside the top 25 to justify it. But yeah, that would be another one.
Kind of the wrong time to do that.
We do have, real quick, a little bit of breaking news.
Oh boy.
It's nothing major, but if you're planning your Thanksgiving weekend and you're trying to figure out Oregon at Washington,
okay, got it.
You have two timelines to pay attention to. And unfortunately, one of them is a day game and one of them is a night game, so you're still kind of in hold. The game's been placed on a 6-day hold. Will be confirmed after this weekend's games. CBS 12:30 kick or NBC 4:30 kick. USC and UCLA are also the opposite. So
okay,
looks like probably whoever wins the Oregon USC game on Saturday probably will become. I don't know who has first choice between the two networks. I would imagine, I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm going to try. But I imagine whoever wins on Saturday
will be the choice.
Will be the first choice between CBS and NBC, whoever has that first one.
Selfishly, 12:30 sounds nice from just a reporter job. But that would be a 7th time they play in that window and a 5th time they play on that network, which, hey, not complaining about it. That's our network. That's us. 12:30 is good. I like both the broadcasters. I know them a little bit. I know fans have opinions, but 12:30 CBS is always kind of a legendary, kind of a cool time to be playing. You get a full national audience. Opportunity to do that. The final 2 games of the season could make a statement there in terms of just you're in front of a lot more eyeballs than you are at other times. Although 4:30 NBC was the other one. That's not bad either.
Although 4:30 in November in Seattle off Lake Washington doesn't sound the greatest. Second half could be pretty bad. So I think I would probably lean selfishly to 12:30 just because A, it's better for you and I. It's the midday game. You're going to be marqueed across the country. And B, I think probably just a better chance. The weather's going to be simply better, which is what we want to see.
Yep.
All right, it's going to do it for us here on the Autzen Audibles podcast. Thank you for submitting your questions. Continue to do these. We will continue to crank out the Monday mailbag. Until the next one, you've been listening to the Autzen Audibles podcast.
Talk to you later, folks.